The crystal wine glass exploded against the travertine wall of Palazzo Azzurro, Miami Beach's most exclusive oceanfront restaurant. Ruby red Bordeaux dripped down the hand-painted Italian tiles as shocked silence fell over the dining room. "You call this service?" roared Rashid Al-Mansouri, his diamond cufflinks catching the light of the Venetian chandeliers as he towered over the young server. "My security team gets better treatment than this garbage." The other patrons, tech moguls, celebrity influencers, and old-money Florida elites, quickly averted their eyes, pretending not to witness the scene unfolding at table 7. Everyone knew Rashid. At 58, the petrochemical billionaire controlled oil refineries across 3 continents and had half of Florida's politicians in his back pocket. When he whispered, governors listened. When he raged, entire industries trembled. For 6 years, Rashid had claimed his corner table at Palazzo Azzurro every Friday at 8 p.m. sharp. He always demanded the same ocean view, always ordered the 12-course chef selection, and always selected someone from the staff to publicly destroy. It was his weekly demonstration of absolute power. "Do you comprehend how much I spend here monthly?" he continued, circling the waitress like a shark sensing blood. "More than your pathetic family makes in 5 years, I guarantee it." But Zara Thompson, just 24 years old, didn't flinch. "Sir, I'd be glad to bring you a replacement wine," she said, her voice steady as she knelt to collect the glass fragments. Her hands weren't trembling, unusual for someone who'd only worked there 3 weeks. Her composure was completely different from the norm. Previous servers had fled in tears after similar encounters with Rashid. Some had quit immediately, but Zara remained there, calm, as if she'd weathered far more devastating storms. "You don't even have the decency to look at me when addressing me." Rashid stepped closer, deliberately violating her personal space. "Where were you raised, child?" "In some Miami project." Several diners discreetly pulled out their phones, sensing something unprecedented was about to unfold. The tension was electric. That's when Zara slowly rose, meeting his gaze directly. What Rashid saw there unsettled him momentarily. No fear, no submission. Something indefinable that deeply troubled him. "I was raised by a woman who taught me that respect is earned, not purchased," she said, her voice quiet but carrying clearly to the surrounding tables. The silence that followed was deafening. Servers froze mid-stride, others ducked behind marble columns. An elderly socialite at the neighboring table gasped audibly, as if someone had finally voiced what everyone was thinking. The general manager, Carlos Mendoza, burst from the kitchen, his face ashen with terror. He'd known Rashid for years and understood exactly what the billionaire could do when challenged. "Miss Thompson," he stammered, "please return to the kitchen immediately." But Rashid raised his hand, stopping any intervention. A cruel smile played across his lips. This was becoming more entertaining than his usual humiliations. "No, let her remain," he said, withdrawing his phone. "I want everyone to witness what happens to those who forget their place." As his fingers moved across the screen, searching for a contact, Rashid failed to notice that Zara was observing his every movement with surgical precision, as if memorizing every detail for something that would come later. What neither realized was that Zara wasn't there by accident. Behind that seemingly ordinary young server was a history of 3 generations of women who had been silenced by powerful men. And in the next 2 hours, the entire concept of power in that restaurant would be completely redefined. "Do you know who I am?" Rashid asked, beginning to dial a number that would probably end her career before the night was over. "I know exactly who you are," Zara replied. And for the first time since the confrontation began, she smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, loaded with something that made several witnesses wonder if they truly knew the girl who had been serving their tables for weeks. "The question is," she continued, "do you know who I am? If you're captivated by this story of courage and unexpected reversals, hit that subscribe button to discover how a simple waitress was about to completely flip the script on one of the most powerful men in Florida." Rashid laughed harshly, the sound echoing through the elegant dining room. You think you can intimidate me with that tough girl performance? Child, I demolish entire corporations before my morning coffee. He finished dialing and pressed the phone to his ear. Mendoza, it's Rashid Al-Mansuri. I want that server terminated immediately, or you lose my contract. He paused, listening to the desperate response. I don't care if she's new. She disrespected me in front of everyone. Manager Mendoza frantically gestured for Zara to leave, but she remained perfectly still, her eyes locked on Rashid's face as he continued his call, as if recording every word in her memory. Excellent. And Mendoza, ensure she never works in Miami again. My reach extends everywhere. Rashid ended the call with a triumphant smirk. What he missed was Zara discreetly slipping her hand into her apron pocket, where a tiny device had captured every word of his threat. There you have it, sweetheart, Rashid said, pocketing his phone. You just received a valuable education about social hierarchy. But instead of walking away devastated as everyone expected, Zara stepped forward. Mr. Al-Mansuri, she said, pronouncing his name with flawless accuracy. Before I go, may I ask you something? It concerns your son, Omar. The smirk froze on Rashid's face. Nobody dared mention his family, especially not his 21-year-old son studying at University of Miami. How do you, he began, but Zara continued. He's a remarkable young man, very intelligent, deeply committed to social justice. I'm sure he'd be fascinated to learn how his father treats restaurant employees. The color drained from Rashid's face. You know nothing about my family. Actually, I know quite a lot, Zara replied calmly. I know he's president of the Social Advocacy Coalition at I know he posted last week about combating systemic oppression. I know he has over 150,000 followers who admire his content about economic equality. The restaurant had fallen completely silent. Some patrons had stopped eating entirely, mesmerized by the dramatic reversal. Rashid attempted to regain control. You're lying. A server wouldn't have access to. Omar's Instagram is public, Zara interrupted gently. So is his LinkedIn, where he discusses plans to use his family's wealth to support underserved communities when he eventually inherits the business. Mendoza watched the exchange, realizing that something fundamental had shifted. Rashid was no longer controlling the situation. What do you want? Rashid asked, his voice losing its previous arrogance. Zara tilted her head slightly. I want you to consider whether it's worth jeopardizing your relationship with your son over a wine glass. She paused, letting the words penetrate. Because I'm certain Omar would be curious why a black waitress knows so much about his activism. And you know how quickly things spread on social media these days. Rashid swallowed hard. His son was his vulnerability, the only person whose opinion truly mattered. They'd spent years rebuilding their relationship after Omar discovered some of his father's questionable business practices. Is that a threat? He asked, but his voice lacked its former power. It's an observation, Zara replied. About how actions create consequences. About how real power doesn't come from terrorizing the vulnerable, but from elevating those around you. A woman at a nearby table began clapping slowly, then another. Within moments, half the restaurant was applauding Zara while Rashid stood there, realizing that for the first time in decades, someone had completely turned the tables on him. But what none of them knew was that this was merely the opening move in a far more sophisticated plan. A plan Zara had designed not just to defend herself, but to publicly expose the true character of men like Rashid Al-Mansuri. And in the coming minutes, everyone would discover that the young waitress had many more cards to play than anyone could have imagined. The applause still resonated through the dining room when Zara pulled out her phone and held it up for all to see. Actually, Mr. Al-Mansuri, she said with unnerving composure, I contacted your son about 15 minutes ago. The blood drained from Rashid's face. You did what? Zara tapped her screen, and a young man's indignant voice filled the silence through the speakerphone. Dad, Zara told me what you just did. I can't believe you humiliated an employee publicly. You promised me you'd changed. Omar's voice carried deep disappointment and anger. Rashid reached desperately for the phone. Omar, hey son, let me explain. There's no explanation, the young man shouted through the speaker. Zara sent me the audio of your threats against her. Dad, you said you'd destroy a girl's career because she wouldn't grovel. How is this different from the old days? The entire restaurant listened as Rashid grasped the full scope of the trap. Zara had recorded everything, the humiliation, the threats, even the call to the manager. How did you get my son's number? He whispered, his arrogance completely shattered. Omar and I met a month ago, Zara revealed, her voice gaining strength. In fact, he helped me secure this position. He wanted someone to document exactly how you behave when you think nobody's watching. The bombshell had detonated. Rashid staggered, gripping his chair for support. Dad, Omar's voice continued through the phone, now calmer but equally resolute. Zara has a master's degree in investigative journalism from FIU. She runs a social justice platform with 3 million followers. And for the past month, she's collected enough evidence to show the world your true character. Mendoza and the staff watched in amazement as Rashid Al-Mansouri, the man who had terrorized South Florida for decades, crumbled before their eyes. This cannot be real, he muttered. You're just a waitress. Zara smiled genuinely for the first time. I'm an investigative journalist, Mr. Al-Mansouri. For 4 weeks, I've documented how you systematically abuse service workers here. I have recordings of 9 separate incidents, testimonies from witnesses, even proof of how you leverage your influence to destroy innocent people's livelihoods. She displayed her phone screen to nearby customers. It's all on my platform. The exposé goes live in 1 hour, complete with all the audio and video I've gathered. Rashid made one final desperate attempt. I'll sue you for defamation. I have the finest legal team. With what resources? Omar interrupted through the speaker. Dad, while you were staging your pathetic performance, I spoke with Uncle Hassan and the company board. They've agreed you need a permanent leave of absence. Rashid's world collapsed instantly. His own family, led by the son he cherished, had orchestrated his downfall. Dad, Omar said, his voice now sorrowful, you've had countless opportunities to change. I promised myself that if you humiliated one more innocent person, I would take action. Zara helped me show everyone who you chose to become. Patrons were now openly filming, capturing the mogul's destruction in real time. Social media was already exploding with hashtags like #RashidExposed and #ZaraHero. Omar, please, Rashid tried once more, his voice breaking. I love you, Dad, but I can no longer shield you from the consequences of your choices. The company is mine now, and my first initiative will be implementing zero-tolerance policies for harassment and abuse. Zara ended the call and looked Rashid directly in the eyes. Your son is an extraordinary person, Mr. Al-Mansouri. It's unfortunate you never learned from his example. Mendoza approached cautiously. Mr. Al-Mansouri, perhaps it would be best if... I understand, Rashid snapped, but his anger was now desperation, not dominance. He surveyed the restaurant, seeing only faces of contempt and phones documenting his humiliation. As he stumbled toward the exit, Zara called out, Mr. Al-Mansouri. He turned, expecting perhaps one final humiliation. I hope someday you realize that respect cannot be bought. It must be earned. The doors of Palazzo Azzurro closed behind Rashid Al-Mansouri for the final time, ending 3 decades of intimidation and abuse. But the real transformation was just beginning, and in the coming months, everyone would learn that the fall of a tyrant is sometimes only the start of something far greater. What do you think was the most powerful moment in this confrontation? Was it when Zara revealed her true identity, or when Omar chose justice over family loyalty? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. For months later, Zara sat in her new office on the 35th floor of the Al-Mansouri Tower, now renamed the Omar Al-Mansouri Center for Economic Justice. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see all of downtown Miami stretching toward the azure Atlantic. "I still can't believe you agreed to become our Director of Community Advocacy," said Omar, entering with 2 cups of Cuban coffee, "after everything my father did." Zara smiled, accepting the beverage. "Your family has the resources to create genuine change, and you've demonstrated that you want to use that power responsibly." The transformation had been remarkable. Zara's story went viral internationally, accumulating over 20 million views in 72 hours. The footage of the restaurant confrontation became a global symbol of resistance against abuse of power. Rashid, meanwhile, had lost everything. The company board, led by Omar and supported by minority shareholders, removed him permanently. His political connections evaporated one by one as officials scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. Even his exclusive country clubs in Palm Beach expelled him. "The news about my father keeps getting worse," Omar commented, settling into a chair. Yesterday, investigators discovered he was using company funds to silence journalists trying to expose his methods. Zara nodded without vindictive pleasure. "Men like your father believe they can bury the truth indefinitely, but eventually, it always surfaces." Palazzo Azzurro had become a destination for people facing similar struggles. Mendoza transformed the restaurant into a space celebrating dignity and respect, with strict zero-tolerance policies for discrimination of any kind. "You know what strikes me most?" said Omar. "My father constantly spoke about building a legacy. Now he has one, as a cautionary tale of what not to become." Zara glanced at the stack of messages on her desk, stories from people worldwide who had found courage to confront their own oppressors after watching her video. "Perhaps that was the universe's intention all along," she mused, "to use his arrogance to inspire millions to stop accepting the unacceptable." Omar picked up one of the letters. "This one's from a teacher in California who reported administrative corruption. This one's from a factory worker in Ohio who exposed safety violations. They all say you inspired them." "It wasn't me," Zara corrected. "It was proving that one ordinary person can make a difference when they decide to stand up." Her phone chimed with a notification. Her platform had surpassed 7 million followers, and every post about social justice generated hundreds of thousands of shares. "How's your father?" Zara asked gently. Omar sighed. "He calls me weekly, begging to talk. He claims he wants to make amends and reunite the family, but he's never apologized to the people he harmed, only for getting caught. Maybe someday he'll understand that genuine remorse begins with acknowledging the pain you've caused others, not with self-pity." Through the window, they could see Palazzo Azzurro in the distance. The restaurant now displayed a banner, "Space of Dignity. All welcome. Respect required." "Do you know which moment impacted me most that night?" asked Omar. "Which one?" "When you said that respect is earned, not purchased. My father spent his entire life buying fear and calling it respect. But true respect is what you've earned. People admire you because you stood for your principles, not because they were afraid of you." Zara walked to the window, gazing down at the bustling city with its millions of stories, millions of people searching for their place in the world. "The best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you," she said, repeating the words that had become her philosophy. "It's building something greater than they could ever envision. It's transforming pain into purpose, injustice into lasting change." Omar smiled. "And inspiring others to do the same." 8 months later, Rashid Al-Mansouri was working as a financial advisor at a mid-sized firm in Jacksonville, far from Miami's spotlight. No private jet, no exclusive restaurants, no employees to intimidate, just a middle-aged man attempting to rebuild a life destroyed by his own hubris. Zara Thompson, however, had become one of America's most respected voices for social justice. Her book, When David Faces Goliath, A Journey from Service to Advocacy, became an international bestseller, and universities across the globe invited her to speak about moral courage. But every evening before sleep, she remembered the lesson her grandmother had shared years ago. Baby girl, the world is full of people who use power to harm others. Your mission isn't to become like them, it's to show that there's a better way. Rashid tried to destroy Zara, but ended up destroying himself. Zara learned that true revenge isn't repaying harm with harm, it's achieving the success your enemies never imagined possible and using that success to prevent others from suffering the same injustices. If this story of courage and transformation moved you, make sure to subscribe for more inspiring tales that prove how one determined person can change the world, one brave act at a time. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Zara's position?